If you're a person that is scared of the devil, you got one. And you have to get rid of it because you have power over them in Jesus' name and exercise it. I had a preacher say to me one time, Brother Roberts, I'm just in the healing ministry. I don't do deliverance ministry. Well, then you don't do half of what Christ did. Jesus healed and delivered. When we today take the commanding positions of our city and our nation, we cannot take it in political maneuvers. We take it in power takeovers, power dominion, authority of the gospel, controlling the heavens and letting the earth be blessed by having an open heaven over it. We need deliverance, people, today more than ever in my life. I see the need for every Sunday, every Monday, every Tuesday, every day of the week that deliverance is offered to them seeking it and needing it. Mental illness is not just by chemical problems alone. Sometimes mental illness is actually demonic activity of oppression, and these things can be broken. And sometimes all medicine does is sedate you while the spirit rages and tortures the soul. Jesus gave us power and authority over all the works of the devil. While in the Philippines, there was another great deliverance besides the one we've just talked about, the deliverance of the girl being bitten by devils. And Brother Sumrall called it the deliverance of the invisible boy. They brought a young boy to him that for some power that would come on him, a demonic power would come on him and give him the ability to pass through walls, steel bars, and have that kind of supernatural power. That's why they called him the invisible boy. The parents would lock him in his room, put steel bars over the window, even have people sit with him, and he in the middle of the night would just vanish in the middle of the air and end up in the city someplace. He'd be doing things, automatic handwriting, medical prescriptions. He'd all types of different demonic things about him. And the parents were distraught, like, we don't know how to raise this boy. This is too much. He vanishes and we can't take care of him. We don't know what's going on and he's doing wrong things. And they brought the young boy to him at Bethel Church there, Bethel Temple. Brother Sumrall cast the devil out of the young boy. He said when the devil left him, the young boy began to scream, "Ooh, she's ugly." Because the demon that was using him and flowing through him manifested itself as a beautiful young lady. And when the power of God came and delivered him, he saw the true features of that spirit of an old, ugly, mean-looking woman that had been on him and working with him. All demons are mean and ugly, and you don't want nothing to do with them no matter what they promise you or how they may work through you for a moment. The devils work through people to find the power of the moment to control you. And once they got power and control over you, then all the joy turns to suffering and pain because you're no longer in charge of yourself. That spirit has the dominion over your human person. And so that young boy was delivered. After the great miracles in the Philippines, Carlita's deliverance, the invisible boy, thousands and thousands of people getting saved, being honored in the city, God says to Lester Sumrall, go back to America. Oh no, it's happening again. I just got this thing going and it's working and everything's great and we're enjoying the blessing of God and you want me to go back to America. So he tells his wife, Louise, I'm going to go back to America. She goes, okay, that's what the Lord wants. So she packs up the bags, packs up the kids, and they move back to America. They go back to South Bend and build a new church. He stays there for a while, but Sumrall seems to be moving. He has a world ministry at heart. So this will give me a few of the dates of his life that you can see how he traveled. In 1956, he moves his family to the nation of Israel for a while and stays there during the Sinai War. Can you imagine? Here he is again with his 3 sons and his wife in the beautiful land of Israel during one of their great wars. He goes, I'm God's child. This is my family. We're not going to get hurt. We're in the land of God. It's all going to be fine. 1959, after he's returned from Israel back to America, he leaves America again to go to Hong Kong to build a new life church, a new life temple there, because he felt it was a great place to begin to able to base for the attack of the gospel on China. So he moved there and built a church that still functions today. I've been in it myself and preached in it. Beautiful church that he built because it had to be a launching pad into China. What I want to do now with Lester Sumrall is I want to talk to you about when he returns. He's 50 years old. He comes back to the States. He does his travel to Israel and does his travel to Hong Kong, and then he kind of settles in to the American nation. And he's 50 years old. And people kept telling him, Lester Sumrall, you're 50 and finished. He said, I heard it so many times that I started to believe it. He says, one day, I heard it for one time, and it really bothered his heart. And he said, I went to pray and said, God, I keep hearing from all of my friends, and some of them are my nice friends, but they keep telling me I'm 50 and finished. That's why you brought me home to America, to just retire and enjoy, because my days of greatness, of obeying you and the adventures of faith are over. Is it true? God says, no, I finally got you where I can trust you, and I'm going to bless you. I can trust you with money. I can trust you with fame. I can trust you with influence over the churches. I'm at a place where I can trust you. I'm about to use you in greater ways. Well, this is just the first part of his life. Now we're entering probably the most productive time of his ministerial life. Let me read you the things that he began to do. In January of 1968, he built his first Christian radio station in Indiana. Then he began to buy TV stations. He'd buy TV stations in Indianapolis, South Bend, Tulsa, Honolulu, in Denver, in Maui, all kinds of stations in New Orleans. He began to buy up Christian TV stations with no money. That's called faith. I would love to, well, I'll just tell you the story very quickly. One of the TV stations that he was negotiating for, he had no money. He felt like God wanted him to own the TV station, and so he began to negotiate, and the banker heard that this Sumrall man is going to buy a TV station, and he wanted to be the man that gave him the money and the loan. He came down there all excited to see Brother Sumrall and said, I want to help finance your purchase of this TV station. I know you're a very wealthy man, but I want to help you. He said he didn't know I didn't have any money in my pocket to even buy a hamburger at that time. He said, I signed my paper, my loan papers, without any money. God made a way for me to buy that TV station. That's called faith. So he began to buy TV stations and begin to have his own show and begin to pioneer that. He would author over 200 books in his lifetime. 200 books worth reading. 200 books that was thought out, biblically sound, good doctrine. His apostolic writings, you might say, began, and we can find them now in over 200 books. In 1985 of December, he launched a shortwave radio station because he always had a heart for the nations. A shortwave radio station is not something that we understand much anymore here in the Western world, but in some parts of the world, it's the only radio that they get. The only news they get is through the shortwave. And so in some parts of the world, it is still a powerful tool, and he wanted to make sure he could beam into China. He could beam into communist Russia, into Cuba, and let people be able to tune into a shortwave and hear the gospel being taught to them in their own language by a radio wave that no communist government could stop or jam. He would build a new church in South Bend, Indiana, or I should say a new building that would seat over 3,500 people. Wow. Lester Sumrall, after 50, was not finished. He was just getting started in another time period of his life. There are two tragedies that I want to mention in the life of Lester Sumrall that I think is good for you to know, that great men that live by faith have challenges. The first challenge was on September the 28th in 1979. A private plane crashed with 5 of his closest associates that worked with him, that was his confidants, were killed in a plane crash. You know, that's devastating to have your team that you work with. You almost have two families. You have your biological family, and then he had his working associates, his work family, his ministry family, and he lost his closest associates in a plane crash. That was very devastating, but he did not quit. Then on June the 12th, 1988, the TV station, Channel 46, his pride of his TV networks, was burnt to the ground. He was flying in from Europe. His sons met him in New York. When he got off the plane, he said, I knew by the way they looked at me that something bad had happened, and I didn't know it was going to be the news that my main TV station had been burnt to the ground. He was supposed to fly from New York to go do a revival meeting immediately in America, so they had already tried to cancel the meeting, and Brother Sumrall said, don't cancel the meeting. I'm going to go preach. They said, but Brother Sumrall, Dad, The TV station's burnt to the ground. He goes, what am I going to do at home? Worry? I'd rather be out here working for God. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to rise again. Good day. Get on the next plane and flew on down and had his revival meeting, and his sons went back to help rebuild the TV station. That's how you live like a man of God. You don't collapse. You don't give up the ghost and die. You don't sit there and whine and cry and, oh me, oh my. You keep walking by faith. You keep producing. You keep going forward. The only way for the man of God is forward movement. You don't go to the right or to the left, and you never go backwards. You always go forward. I was a good friend of Brother Sumrall's, and I was driving him one day after we had lunch in South Bend, and I'd missed the turn to come into the back part of the church. I was not familiar really with the back entrance into the church, and for some reason that day, we were coming through the back entrance, and I missed the turn. So it was a road where you could back up. It wasn't that, big of a road. It was just a neighborhood road, kind of a secret road. And I started to back up, and Brother Sumrall goes, what are you doing? I thought, well, I'm backing up to turn. He said, I don't go backwards. Go around the block and do it right the next time. So he didn't like going backwards even to take a new turn. So it might sound extreme, but when you live a certain way, everything about you moves that way. So some of you live in backwards. That's why you can't have anything beautiful happen to you in the future. You live in the past. Oh, it's so great in the past. So wonderful in the past. If your past is better than your present, then you're backslidden. If your church's past is better than its present and its tomorrows, then the whole bunch of you are backslidden. If your denomination or ministerial network is always reveling and romancing the past, then all of you put together are a bunch of backslidden network pastors, and y'all need to repent and get right with God. We live forward. We don't go backwards. We go forward. We don't go backwards. Sumrall's greatest days are still coming. In the latter years of his life, it's when I met him. I met him in his giving years. I did not know him as the young man learning. I did not know him as the man that was doing what he had learned. I learned and became close to him in the years of his giving, when he was at the end of his life and his fathering side of the apostolic call became the dominant force in his life. In the latter years of his life, he did two things. God gave him a great commission to feed the hungry Christians around the world in 1987. He was in Israel when God woke him up in the middle of the night and said, I hear from my children all over the world, Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give me this day my daily bread. He goes, too many of my children are going to sleep at night hungry. I want you to feed my people and let them not be hungry anymore. So now God had put on him not just the spiritual mandate of feeding them, but to put food in their natural belly. And God would give him a C-130 plane that could take 30,000 plus pounds of food in the air and fly it places, and give him a huge ship. It would take $250,000 to put enough petrol in it, enough gas in it, to get it from the States to Europe and back. So it was a big ship. God trusted him with these great tools, these expensive tools. When God trusts you, the price of the tools that you need to get the job done is never a problem. Most people, their identity would become their church building, or the plane they fly, or the trucks that they have, or the boat that they own. But when you work for God, what you use to get the job done never is a part of your identity or your prestige. The fruit that you bear is where you smile. The fruit that you produce is where things make you happy and keep you motivated, not what you own. Your building is a tool. Your trucks are a tool. Your plane is a tool. Your ships are a tool. They're a tool to get the command of God done in your life. And God will give you all the tools you need, no matter what the price is, if you'll keep it in the right order within your person. It don't matter what the other guy says. It's what you say inside that God hears that counts. And so he would do that for the rest of his life. Now, his second ministry that I mentioned, I want to make it as a second thing he would do at the end of his life, would take care of preachers, take care of young pastors. A lot of people today say, well, you be my mentor. What you really need is a father and a mother. You don't need someone just to take your name and a check. You need someone that would know your name, be able to pray for you and talk to you, tell you when you're right and tell you when you're wrong. That's what a spiritual parent is. Brother Sumrall became that for hundreds, if not a few thousand young men in the latter years of his life. He would preach. Say, how do you know? Because I was with him. He'd preach, for example, up in Scandinavia with a church at a camp meeting, 5,000 to 6,000 people a night, and then fly to East Germany and preach for a pastor with 50 people in a rundown building. I was with him on some of those things, and I said to him one time, I said, Brother Sumrall, you know, we all love you. And people would travel to get to you. They would move heaven and earth, cancel and change their schedule if they knew you were coming. And why don't you just fly to big cities or where there's good airports or good train stations and tell everybody to come, and the pastors of their family and many of their children would come just to see you and to talk to you. They love you. He said to me, you can't help a man, truly help a man, unless you're with him on his own territory where God placed him. I want to go there and I want to preach and bless them where God told them to be. I want to observe them in their own environment. I want to see their family, and I want to be able to speak and to help them from where they are. He said, they always come to your place. They'll only just know you in your environment. But when you're a father, you have to go where they are and spend time with them where they are commissioned, where they are planted, where they are fighting the principality, where they're building, where they're living their daily lives. Brother Sumrall never felt it a problem or felt like it was an unjust request of him to go to a small church of a young pastor, a beginning Bible school. He says, when they're little, you can do more to help them, because when they become teenagers, it's almost too long gone before you can help them. And that's true in the natural as well as in the spirit. When you have churches that are beginning and ministries that are beginning, there's power of influence, and you can help form them and help put the right thing in them. But when they get a little bit of success, it's amazing how many things, they know everything. And they just stay in that one little realm and produce fruit and never fulfill their high call and all they're supposed to do. He was my friend. He was the one that helped me in my young Bible school, in my churches. And he's one that loved me. I met him for the first time in Scandinavia. I was preaching at a great Swedish camp meeting. And I'd seen Lester Sumrall preach at my church at Tulsa. My pastor in those days was Billy Joe and Sharon Daughtery of Victory Christian Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tremendous, tremendous church and great pastors. And he'd come to the church and preach, and so I had read some of his books, I'd heard him preach, and I'd admired him, and I was kind of scared of him because of his disposition and the way he would talk and the way he would do certain things. I didn't run from him, but I was a little nervous that I didn't know how to deal with him. So he had come early that day, and I was preaching. He came, walked right across the front, and sat down next to the pastor while I was preaching, and that caused me extra stress. Because I didn't want to preach in front of Lester Sumrall. Who am I for him to be listening to me? I'm a kid. He's a papa. He's a father of the faith. He needs to be preaching. But when you're already speaking, you can't just sit down. You got to keep going. So I kept preaching, and I was hoping I did good. I actually finished a little bit early because I couldn't take the pressure much. And so we finished the service, and we went up into the green room, or the place we would have lunch and a cup of tea. And he spoke to me. It was very nice to meet me and so forth. And I said, well, I've known of you for years, and it's great to meet you for the very first time this way. He says, well, I liked what you had to say. I think you have a good promise of being a good preacher. I said, well, thank you, sir. And he said, well, tomorrow morning, we will have breakfast at 8 o'clock in the hotel. Good day. Walks off. I thought, well, he didn't ask me if I had a breakfast appointment. Thank God that I didn't. So I was so excited, but I was still nervous. I thought, me and him by myself? What am I going to do? There's no one to help me carry the conversation. If I get in trouble, I'm there by myself and I can't get out. So when you go to meet a man of God, a great person of God, you don't come late, number one. Respect starts with how you dress. Respect starts, secondly, your timetable. Respect starts on creating an environment by which the beauty of God can flow out of one's heart into yours. Most people don't know how to be around greatness. That's why they miss the deposit that God had arranged for them to have. or they get so little of it. I got up early that day, a couple hours early. I shined my shoes. I made sure my shirt was pressed. I put on nice clothes. I was down there and I went and was there before the restaurant opened. So when they opened the door, I talked to the head person. I said, I want that table and I don't want anybody else to sit in this section. Can you arrange that? Well, sir, I said, I need this and I don't need to tell you why. Can you do this? Well, we'll do it for you. I said, I appreciate that. And I went back out and after I checked the table, I made sure I knew who the waiter was, and I waited in front of the elevator about 15, 20 minutes. So when that door opened, there I was. You meet greatness on time. You meet greatness dressed right. You meet greatness by speaking correctly to it, respectfully. And I said, good morning, Brother Sumrall. He goes, it's good morning to see you. He says, are you ready for breakfast? I said, yes, I have our table already ready. He goes, oh, okay. And we walk in and we sit at our table and we order our food, and he starts talking to me and asking me questions, and I'm trying to answer them the best way that I could, making sure that every word that I said was one that I meant to say and one that I wanted to say, and that I wouldn't have to explain it later or say something stupid that makes him go inside like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Thank God I survived the first breakfast with Lester Sumrall. And as we finished, he goes, I'm flying out today, but I live in South Bend, Indiana. You should come to see me. I said, well, thank you, Brother Sumrall. I thought he was just being socially polite. I didn't realize at that time that he only says what he means, because sometimes there's social politeness. You say things that in the depth of it, you really don't mean it. You mean it in the surface of it. Kind of like, I live in South Bend. If you're ever in South Bend, call me and we'll have lunch. That's not what Lester Sumrall meant. He meant make a trip to see me. That's how he said it, but I didn't hear it that way the first time. So I go back home, and a few weeks go by, almost a couple of months, and the secretary, Brother Sumrall's secretary, was one of my partners. And I didn't know that until this incident. She called one day, and I took the call. She said, I'm so-and-so, I love you, and I can't cover for you anymore. I thought, well, what do you mean cover for me? She said, he keeps asking, when is Robert Slayton coming? And I keep saying, he's overseas or something, because I look at your schedule on the internet and I'm running out of things to say. You better get up here and get up here now. I said, well, I didn't think he meant it. And that's when I learned my first thing. He says what he means. He means for you to be here. I said, I'll be there in a few days. So I booked it. Cost me almost $800 to fly from Orange County, California to South Bend, Indiana. I flew up there, rented a car, and drove to the office and walked inside and said, I'm here to see Brother Sumrall. He's expecting you. I walked into his office and sat down, and in my nice suit and shiny shoes, everything was together, and I looked like a nice, presentable young man, and he said, and your first question is? Well, I had no questions. I didn't know you were supposed to come with questions to see Brother Sumrall. I thought we were going to have a conversation. We just kind of have a discussion. He looked at me and said, don't ever come to me again without questions. Do not waste my time. I said, yes, sir. So in my mind, I began to come up with all the kinds of questions that I knew. Some of them were quite stupid, but at least I had questions to fill up an hour. He said, I think we should go eat lunch now. I said, well, I would like that. So we go to lunch, and we have a nice conversation. I think we go to Benihana's is where we go to lunch, a Japanese restaurant. And we eat, and we come back, and I walk back in with him to his office, and I sit down, and he says, I know you have a flight this afternoon, and is there anything else you'd like to talk about? I said, no, I've enjoyed my visit here. He said, would you want me to bless you? I said, well, I'd love to be blessed by you. I'd love to be prayed for by you. I was raised in a Pentecostal family, so being blessed was a part of my life. So I was ready for all kinds of blessings, nice touches, massages, shakings. I had all kinds of blessings. So I bowed my head, thought he would just pray behind the desk. He said, get up and come around here and kneel down here beside me at my chair. I said, okay. Didn't bother me. It's fine. So I got up out of my chair and I went around and knelt down on the floor next to his chair, and he cleared his throat and took his third finger and his thumb and grabbed my head and he goes, be blessed. He says, you can go now. Come back anytime you want to. I got up off the floor, and I got in my car and drove to the airport and got on my plane to fly back to Orange County, California, thinking, I'm never going to do that again. I feel like a total jerk. I don't know anything. I feel like I made a fool of myself today, and I have enough drama without creating more drama like this. So I was going through all of this, and the Lord came to me on that plane. He said, you will return because I've arranged it and you will return many times. And I said to the Lord, I said, God, the whole time I'm with him, I feel like I'm an idiot. I don't know nothing. I keep making mistakes. He goes, that's why you're there, to start getting things right, strengthening what needs to be stronger in you. And the Lord told me something or taught me something that day of how to be around greatness. You know why some of you don't like to be around stronger people, more successful people, authoritative people? Because your insides and your personal conscience shakes and vibrates when you're around people of absoluteness and strength and boldness and sureties. And when you're not that way, you vibrate. And the Lord said, write down everything that you can remember that was not right on a piece of paper, that you vibrated here, you didn't do good there, and work on it. And the next time you're with them, see what vibrates and what doesn't, what speaks and what doesn't speak. Wow, I learned how to receive from a spiritual father. And we built a beautiful relationship that had been a major part of my beginning years. And I was one of his sons in his latter years. He had many sons. I'm just one of them. And I'm so glad that inside of my spirit, there is a deposit from the man of Lester Sumrall. Many of you, God will arrange in this time period for you to be around greatness, for a deposit, a blessing to come to you. Don't leave the presence of greatness without asking for the blessing. Don't walk out and just view everything naturally. Make sure you keep the divine relationship on the spiritual plane first. The natural comes in second. I received a phone call on April the 28th, 1996. Brother Sumrall had died that day of pneumonia. The first time he'd gone to the hospital in probably his whole life since the doctor days when he was a young man. He'd got a pneumonia in his lungs, and he went home to be with the Lord that day. One of God's great generals left the earth, but he left a deposit inside of many young men that lives today. As I close this session with you now, I pray that God will take you that have been blessed by this great man, and may that deposit and that spirit of faith and deliverance come alive inside of you. I speak life to it again. I stir it up, and may that which you've received from him and even others move inside of you and begin to dominate your thinking and your doing and your ministry. I pray that for you today in Jesus' name. Amen and amen.